Hi everyone. We're back on here with another speaker introduction, and very glad to have our brother Dan Sedore there in the sunny climates of Lindsay, or not quite, Dan.
Not on the day we're recording here today, anyway.
No, and I think the hope is that we wouldn't have just as much snow to clear when we're heading to men's retreat in a few weeks' time, right?
Yes.
But true winter we're having for sure this year. But Dan, really glad to have you on for a few moments, and just going to ask a few questions so that the guys get to know you a little bit as you're coming to speak at our second retreat, which is right at the end of the month, February 28th and March 1st. And we'll say a little bit more at the end about registering and how you can come to join us that weekend. Dan Sedore, one of our speakers, I'm going to ask you, Dan, just to give a little introduction to yourself and kind of where you're coming from, what you're involved in, and maybe just share just a little bit of kind of when you came to know the Lord as well. Thanks, Dan.
Sure. I grew up in a Christian home, which was certainly a blessing by the grace of God. And I was saved at a very young age. I can't remember the exact day or the time, but I know it was just a boy. And then as my understanding grew of the work of Christ and the gospel, so too did my appreciation grow of what he did for me and my salvation. I was baptized at the age of 13. And I grew up on actually had a farm, and my parents also had a group home for mentally ill adults and a butcher shop. So it was a busy household.
Mm,
And my parents are also very much involved in the church, and they were serving regularly. And so no, it was a blessed place, busy place, but we were certainly blessed as a family. Um, when I was 17, I apprenticed as a brick and stone mason, and I worked at that for probably almost 10 years and got married in about the eighth year of that time. And then after that, my wife and I started our own group home for mentally ill adults. We ran that for 12 years. And during that time, I guess I knew that I was called to ministry, but
mhm,
this is not something that I wanted to do. And quite
mhm,
honestly, it's something I ran from for probably about 15 years. And I guess I didn't want the weight of that. I didn't want the responsibility of it. And I thought, Lord, take somebody else.
mhm,
And but the whole time I loved working at the group home and looking after our clients in that home, but I just had no peace at all.
mhm,
And anyway, the burden got heavier and heavier. And then finally what it boiled down to was this question. I can still remember it. It was My wife was already sound asleep. I was laying in bed one night, and it came down to this question. And the question was, what are you going to say when you stand in front of your Lord and Savior? And he says to you, why didn't you do what you were called to do when I called you?
mhm,
What are you going to say?
mhm,
And I knew I didn't have an answer, and nor did I knew I never wanted to be in that position where I had to give that answer. And that night, I went to sleep, and I got up the next morning. I said to my wife, we need to sell out.
mhm,
I need to go to seminary. And she said, yes, I know.
mhm.
Of course, our wives have a lot of intuition. And she said, I knew this quite some time ago, just waiting for you to catch up.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we did. We had a wife
Yeah.
and three kids at that point, and we sold our business, and we were doing well financially, and I quite enjoyed it. But this is what we were called to do. And there was a
Yeah.
few people told us that we were crazy. They said,
Mhm.
who sells their business at this stage in life with three kids and heads off to seminary? But I will tell you something. I've never had more peace in my life
Mhm.
since that day.
Yeah.
And what a blessing it is. And so I was going to seminary, I actually pastored a church at Kinmount, co-pastored it actually with an uncle of mine. I was there for 2.5 years. And when I graduated from seminary, I was up at Thornlow Crossroads Baptist Church up in Northern Ontario. We're there for almost 7 years, and then we got called to Little Britain.
Mhm.
And the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Mhm.
When we moved up north, we went with tears. I didn't really want to go, but I knew this is what we had to do. And then when we came back south to Ontario, I came south with tears.
Yeah.
We didn't care to move back this way
Yeah.
again. But there's always peace in what the Lord's called you to do.
Yeah.
And I knew that, and I knew that this is where we were meant to be.
Hmm.
And so now I've been pastoring for I think about 16 years. And
Brilliant.
and honestly, the Lord just continues to give strength
Yeah.
and He's blessed us.
You want to share a little bit, kind of as we anticipate the weekend coming to speak, what's been on your heart and mind, and just in preparation for coming,
Yeah.
what you're going to be sharing.
I get the question I ask even as I started to prepare for the weekend is what do we need as men?
Hmm.
What do we need to hear? And then I ask the question, what do I need to hear?
That's right.
Because I'm
Yeah.
no different. And
Hmm.
uh and and I as I start to walk down that road and I try to think, okay, Lord, where should we be and where would you have us be? And I there's a few things I guess that have crossed my mind. The first thing is, I mean, we need to have our eye fixed upon Christ.
Hmm.
We need to run the race with perseverance.
Hmm.
And we need to be men who are in the Word of God. We
Hmm.
need to be men who are encouraged to pray and spend time in prayer. We need to be men who are leading our families, men who are leading in the church and serving in the church. So as I started making this list out,
Hmm.
I mean, obviously we're not going to be able to touch on all these things, but
Yeah.
those are some of the things that we're going to touch on.
Yeah.
And if there's some way that over the period of those four messages that by the grace of God that we as men can be encouraged into those things,
Hmm.
I know we will be blessed for it. So those are
Yeah.
some of the things we're going to be touching on.
Brilliant. Yeah, very applicable, Dan. I think any of those for all of us, and I think you're right. It's your own heart and your need. What what your need is also the same for me, for other men. What are we needing to strive for and look to? And obviously, we're looking to Christ, and those things that you've mentioned to be men of prayer and men, of discipline and love for the Lord and love for our families and for others. And you've touched on a lot of important things there, Dan. So really, really looking forward to that, and really, to piggyback on that, a final question. Then, what's your prayer? As you think about yourself, you're coming to speak, but you also want to be ministered to. I know yourself.
Mhm.
So, what's your prayer? As a result of this weekend, that you would have for yourself or for other men as they come and then as they leave, because it's not just the retreat, it's what's beyond it, right? So what would be
Yeah.
your hope and prayer as a result of it?
I'd say first and foremost, salvation for those who are not saved.
Yeah.
And then secondly, that the men that are there, that, if there's a sin issue, that they're convicted of it, or me,
Hmm.
or that we might be encouraged, that, I guess that our flame might be just burning a little bit brighter when we leave, and
Hmm.
that our eye might be fixed upon Christ, and that we're going to long to hear those words, "Well done, good and faithful servant,"
Yeah.
and may we run the race longing to hear that.
Yes.
And if there's some way that if there's if the Lord my prayer is that the Lord will take the five loaves and two fish,
Hmm.
and Tim, He'll do something with it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. When the
that's
Lord
what I
did
pray.
Yeah, when the Lord did that, it was blessed, it was broken, it was poured out to bless so many others, right? Provide. So that's God takes his word, right? And it doesn't return to him void. So that's the wonderful
No,
thing. Yeah.
no,
Well, Dan, we're excited. I'm excited to hear what God has to say. At the end of the day, as we often say, we're just one beggar telling another beggar where we found bread, to use that
yes,
description, right? Man, just a reminder, February 28th, March 1st is the weekend. And if you're able to come and register, there's still time to do that. And you'll see the details on the screen and the web link, or you can contact the office to let us know if you're coming for the weekend, Friday, Saturday, or just on the Saturday. Then we would love to have you. And also to remind you that over the weekend we have an extensive book table, and we've got some great books to really help you in your walk with God, along with the Bible, the book, but also some other great resources, even along with the topics that Dan's mentioned. So, reminder, and they're all great deals. Dan knows we like a good deal at the Faith Mission, right? So, So anyway, that's all for now. We just wanted to hop on. Dan, thanks so much for taking the time there. Hopefully, you'll not have to plow your way through to come here in a few weekends' time.
I'm
Uh,
hoping not. I'm hoping the road will be clear. So
yeah, all will be clear. And well, we're praying for you, Dan. Be assured of that, and looking forward to you, and looking forward to the men that will join us for this weekend, February 28th to March 1st. Look forward to seeing you there. Thanks, Dan. God
thanks,
bless.
Tim. You too. Bye bye.